It's 4:38 a.m. and I'm sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by printed screenshots, highlighted text messages, and a journal I've been keeping for the past 2 weeks. 2 weeks since I accidentally discovered that my friend group has been running what they call a support circle for the past 8 months. A regular meeting where they gather to discuss, process, and heal from the trauma of being my friend. My name is Cameron Wells. I'm 32 years old, and until 14 days ago, I thought I was a good person. Maybe not perfect, but decent, kind, someone people liked being around. Now I know the truth. I'm the villain in everyone else's story. I'm the toxic friend, the manipulative one, the emotional abuser. And the worst part? I had absolutely no idea. I need to write this down because I'm losing my grip on reality. Because every conversation I've ever had is now suspect. Because I've spent 2 weeks reviewing my entire personality, and I don't know who I am anymore. Because my friends didn't just think I was difficult. They created an organized system to cope with the damage I was apparently causing them. Let me start with how I found out, because the discovery itself was so mundane that it makes the revelation even more surreal. I was at my friend Melissa's apartment 2 weeks ago. She texted our main group chat, me, her, Jason, Rachel, Ben, and Sophie, asking if anyone wanted to come over for dinner. I was the only one who responded yes. Everyone else claimed to be busy. This wasn't unusual. Lately, it seemed like I was always the only one available when someone suggested hanging out. I chalked it up to people being busy with work, relationships, life. Adult friendships are hard to maintain, I told myself. Everyone's priorities shift. I showed up at Melissa's around 7 p.m. with wine and flowers, like I always do. I'm thoughtful like that. At least I thought I was. We cooked dinner together, had a nice time, talked about work and dating and all the normal stuff. Around 9:30, I said I needed to use her bathroom. Use the one in my bedroom, Melissa said. The hall bathroom sink is clogged. I went to her bedroom, used the bathroom, and on my way out, I noticed her laptop was open on her bed. The screen was still lit up, showing what looked like a Google Doc. I shouldn't have looked. I know that, but I saw my name, Cameron, in bold at the top of the document. And once I saw my name, I couldn't look away. The document was titled, Support Circle, Session. Notes, October 15th. I sat down on Melissa's bed and started reading. What I read made me feel like I was having an out-of-body experience. Session facilitator. Rachel attendees, Melissa, Jason, Sophie, Ben. Rachel duration, 90 minutes opening check-in. Melissa. Had a difficult interaction with Cameron this week. Felt criticized for my career choices again. Used techniques from last session to set boundaries. Feeling stronger but still processing. Jason. Cameron texted me 47 times in one day. Felt overwhelming. Practiced not responding immediately. Feeling guilty but necessary. Sophie. Doing better with limiting contact. Only saw Cameron once this week. Felt proud of maintaining boundaries. Ben. Still processing the guilt from last month. Cameron asked why I've been distant. Didn't know how to answer. Need help with scripting responses. Rachel. Grateful for everyone's commitment to this process. Reminder that setting boundaries is not cruel. It's self-care. Discussion. Topics. Topic 1. Cameron's response to Melissa's promotion. Melissa shared that she told Cameron about her promotion last Tuesday. Cameron's immediate response was, "Wow, I'm surprised they chose you over internal candidates, and I hope you're ready for that level of responsibility." Melissa felt her achievement was minimized and questioned. Group reflection. This is a pattern we've identified before. Cameron frames concerns as care, but the impact is diminishing others' confidence. Jason noted similar comments when he started his business. Sophie mentioned Cameron's reaction to her engagement was focused on potential problems rather than celebration. Action items. Melissa will practice responses when Cameron makes these types of comments. Group suggested, "I'm proud of my accomplishment and would appreciate your support," and disengaging if Cameron persists. Topic 2. The frequency of communication, Jason. Expressed feeling exhausted by Cameron's communication style. In the past week, 47 texts, 12 calls, 3 voicemails asking why Jason wasn't responding. Content ranged from memes to long rants about work to demands for immediate advice on personal matters. Group discussion. We revisited Cameron's pattern of treating friends as on-call therapists. Rachel reminded the group that we are not responsible for Cameron's emotional regulation. Ben shared that he used to feel guilty not responding immediately, but has realized this was Cameron's manipulation, making us feel like bad friends for having boundaries. Progress noted. Everyone is getting better at not responding immediately. Sophie mentioned she no longer feels panic when she sees Cameron's name on her phone. Topic 3. The guilt and why. We're here. Ben brought up his ongoing struggle with guilt. Cameron has been there for me during hard times. Doesn't that mean I owe Cameron something? Group processing. Rachel reminded us that being there for someone doesn't give them license to emotionally exhaust us. Melissa pointed out that Cameron's support often came with strings, bringing up times Cameron helped during future conflicts, keeping score, making us feel indebted. Jason shared a breakthrough. I realized Cameron's version of helping often made me feel worse. Like when I was depressed and Cameron would come over unannounced, ignore my request for alone time, and then get upset when I wasn't grateful enough. That's not support. That's control. Sophie agreed. Cameron's help always comes with Cameron's agenda. Reminder from Rachel. We all agreed to this circle because we recognized a pattern of emotional harm. Remembering why we're here is important when guilt creeps in. I kept reading. The document went on for pages. There were sections on Cameron's patterns we've identified, strategies for setting boundaries, processing our own behaviors that enabled this dynamic, and long-term goals for the group. Under patterns, they'd listed catastrophizing and creating urgency, making every problem feel like an emergency that requires immediate friend intervention. Emotional scorekeeping, bringing up past favors or support during conflicts, minimizing others' experiences, responding to friends' good news with criticism disguised as concern, boundary violations, showing up unannounced, calling repeatedly, demanding immediate responses, guilt manipulation, making friends feel responsible for Cameron's emotional state, playing victim, framing every conflict as others being cruel or unfair to Cameron, triangulation, talking about members of the friend group to each other, creating drama and division gaslighting, denying previous conversations or actions when confronted. Reading this list, I felt physically ill. These weren't just criticisms. They were carefully documented patterns. This wasn't one person being upset with me. This was a group of people who'd collectively identified me as harmful. I scrolled up in the document, found a link to a folder titled Support Circle Archive. Clicked it. There were dozens of documents, meeting notes going back 8 months. The first one was titled Initial Meeting, Why We're Gathering. I opened it. February 10th, First Support Circle Meeting, present, Rachel. Melissa, Jason, Sophie, Ben, Rachel. Thank you all for coming. I know this feels strange, meeting to talk about Cameron like this, but I think we all know why we're here. We've each individually expressed to each other that being Cameron's friend has become exhausting, sometimes harmful. I thought it might help to have a space where we can be honest about this together. Melissa. I almost didn't come. It feels like betrayal. But last week when Cameron showed up at my apartment unannounced at 11 p.m. because we needed to talk about something important, that turned out to be Cameron wanting to rant about work for 2 hours. I realized I can't do this anymore. Not like this. Jason. Same. I've been losing sleep over Cameron's texts. If I don't respond fast enough, I get accused of being a bad friend. If I do respond, the conversation goes on for hours and I can't get away. I feel trapped. Sophie. When I got engaged last month, Cameron's first response wasn't congratulations. It was, "Are you sure? You've only been dating for 2 years. What's the rush? I hope you're not making a mistake." I cried for hours. My engagement should have been happy, and Cameron made me doubt everything. Ben. Cameron has been my friend longer than anyone here, 10 years, and I've noticed these patterns the whole time but always made excuses. Cameron's just anxious. Cameron means well. Cameron's had a hard life, but I'm exhausted, and I don't think friendship should feel like this. Rachel. I proposed we meet as a group because I think we're all enabling Cameron's behavior by not talking openly about it. We each handle Cameron individually, get exhausted, maybe pull back a bit, but then feel guilty and get pulled back in. If we support each other, maybe we can set healthier boundaries together. Group agreement. We all agreed this isn't about being mean to Cameron or ganging up. This is about supporting each other and maintaining our own mental health while navigating a friendship that has become toxic. We agreed to meet monthly, share strategies, and hold each other accountable to boundaries we set. I sat there on Melissa's bed, my hands shaking, reading document after document. 8 months of meetings. 8 months of my friends gathering to discuss how harmful I was to them. 8 months of documented patterns, coping strategies, and mutual support for dealing with me. There were notes from sessions where they discussed specific incidents. The time I showed up at Jason's house at 6 a.m. because I was having a crisis. I'd had a fight with my sister and needed to talk immediately. The time I uninvited Sophie from my birthday party because she couldn't help me set up the day before. I told her she clearly didn't care about me. The time I called Melissa crying at 2 a.m. and got angry when she said she had work in the morning and needed to sleep. The time I borrowed money from Ben and then got upset when he asked for it back because I thought he cared more about me than money. The time I told Rachel her new boyfriend seemed controlling and not good enough for her after meeting him once. Each incident was described in detail, with analysis of the manipulative dynamics at play. And the worst part? Reading their descriptions, I remembered these events. I remembered my perspective, which had always been that I was the one being hurt, abandoned, misunderstood. But reading their accounts, I could see how my behavior had been harmful. One document was titled, "Why We Haven't Confronted Cameron Directly." I opened it with a sense of dread. Rachel, several people have asked why we don't just tell Cameron how we feel. I want to address this directly because it's something we all struggle with. Reasons we haven't confronted Cameron. Past attempts have failed. Multiple people have tried to set boundaries or express concerns. Cameron responds with tears, accusations that we're being cruel, bringing up times Cameron has been there for us, or threatening self-harm. The emotional manipulation makes it impossible to have a productive conversation. Fear of retaliation. When Jason tried to set a boundary about texting frequency, Cameron sent a long message to the whole group chat about how Jason was abandoning their friendship. Cameron turns personal conflicts into group drama. The harm versus benefit calculation. We've discussed whether directly confronting Cameron would help or harm. Consensus is that Cameron lacks the self-awareness to receive this feedback. A confrontation would likely lead to Cameron feeling attacked, playing victim, and potentially escalating harmful behavior. Protecting ourselves. We've all reached a point where our priority is our own well-being, not fixing Cameron. A confrontation would require enormous emotional energy with little likelihood of positive outcome. Gradual distancing is safer. Instead of a dramatic confrontation, we're each slowly creating distance. This support circle helps us do this without guilt and without Cameron pulling us back in with manipulation. Group decision. We continue supporting each other in setting boundaries and creating distance. If Cameron directly asks any of us why we've been distant, we have scripted responses prepared, but we're not initiating a confrontation. I felt like I couldn't breathe. They'd thought about confronting me, decided against it, concluded I was too toxic to even have an honest conversation with, decided the best approach was to slowly fade me out of their lives while supporting each other through the process. I heard Melissa's footsteps coming toward the bedroom. I quickly closed the laptop, stood up, tried to compose my face. "You okay in here?" Melissa asked, appearing in the doorway. I looked at her, really looked at her. Tried to see the person who'd been documenting my toxicity for 8 months, who'd been meeting with my other friends to strategize how to cope with me, who was standing here now pretending everything was normal. "I'm fine," I said. My voice sounded strange. "Actually, I should probably head home. Early morning tomorrow." "Oh, okay," Melissa said. She looked relieved. That expression, relief, confirmed everything I'd read. She was relieved I was leaving. I grabbed my stuff, gave her a quick hug, and left. Sat in my car in her parking lot for 30 minutes, trying to process what I'd discovered. When I got home, I did something I'm not proud of but felt necessary. I looked up each person's Google Calendar. We'd all shared calendars years ago for coordinating hangouts. I'd never thought to look at them before. Each person had a recurring monthly event. Different days but always with the same attendees. The 5 of them. The event titles varied. Book club, game night, dinner planning. But they were all at Rachel's apartment. Always Rachel's apartment. Same location, same attendees, suspiciously consistent timing. These weren't real book clubs or game nights. These were the support circle meetings. My friends gathering to talk about me. I started going through my text messages, my email, my memories of interactions over the past 8 months. Looking at everything through this new lens, the patterns they'd identified, I could see them now. My text to Jason. I'd scroll back through months of messages and see that yes, I did text constantly. Sometimes 20-30 messages in a row if he didn't respond. I'd always thought of it as being close friends, staying connected. But looking at it objectively, I could see how it would be overwhelming. My response to Sophie's engagement, I'd thought I was being a caring friend by raising concerns, but reading the support circle notes, I could see how I'd minimized her happiness and made her feel doubtful about a joyful moment, showing up at people's places unannounced. I'd always framed this as spontaneity, being comfortable enough to just drop by, but they experienced it as boundary violations. Every pattern they'd listed, I could find examples of in my own behavior. The evidence was overwhelming. I was exactly the person they'd described in those documents. That first night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table and started making my own list. Every behavior they'd identified, every incident they'd documented, every pattern they'd noticed, I wrote it all down. And then I started adding my own examples, things they hadn't mentioned but that fit the patterns. The time I got angry at Ben for not inviting me to his family's Thanksgiving because I had nowhere else to go, manipulating him through guilt. The time I told Melissa her new haircut looked interesting and then got upset when she seemed hurt because I was just being honest, disguising criticism as honesty. Time I started a group chat without Sophie to discuss concerns about her relationship, triangulation. Time I accused Rachel of being selfish for taking a solo trip instead of visiting me when I was going through a rough time, making her responsible for my emotional state. The list grew and grew. By morning, I had filled 10 pages with examples of my toxic behavior that, in the moment, I'd justified or explained away, but that I could now see clearly as harmful. I spent the next 2 weeks in what I can only describe as an existential crisis. I couldn't eat, could barely sleep, called in sick to work for 3 days because I couldn't function. I've been going through every friendship, every relationship, every interaction I've ever had, viewing it through this new framework, and the patterns are everywhere, not just with this friend group, with everyone. My ex-girlfriend broke up with me 2 years ago saying I was emotionally exhausting, and I needed to work on myself. I'd thought she was being cruel. Now I wonder if she was just stating facts. My college roommate stopped talking to me senior year. I'd thought she was the problem, flaky, bad friend. Now I remember that I used to barge into her room at all hours, borrow her things without asking, get upset when she made plans that didn't include me. My sister and I have a strained relationship. I've always blamed her for being distant and cold. Now I'm thinking about all the times I've called her crying about crises that, looking back, weren't really crises. All the times I've made her feel guilty for not being available immediately when I needed her. The more I examine my life through this lens, the more I realize I'm the common denominator. Every failed friendship, every strained relationship, every person who's pulled away from me. It's not because they're all terrible people. It's because I'm toxic. I decided I needed to confront the group, not to defend myself. I couldn't defend the indefensible, but because I needed them to know that I knew, that the secret was out. I created a group chat with just the 5 of them. Rachel, Melissa, Jason, Sophie, and Ben. Sent one message. I know about the support circle. I know you've been meeting for 8 months to discuss my toxic behavior. I know you've been documenting my patterns and strategizing how to cope with me. I'm not angry. I'm destroyed, but I'm not angry. You were right about all of it. I need time to process this, and I understand if none of you want to talk to me, but I wanted you to know that I know. The responses came within minutes. Rachel, Cameron, I don't know how you found out, but I want to be clear. The support circle wasn't meant to hurt you. It was meant to help us set healthy boundaries. Melissa, I'm so sorry you found out this way. We should have talked to you directly, but every time anyone tried, you made it impossible. Jason, I feel terrible that you're hurting, but I also feel relief that it's out in the open. I've been exhausted for years, Cameron. Years. Sophie, I don't know what to say. Part of me feels guilty, but part of me remembers how you made me feel about my engagement, and I remember why the support circle was necessary. Ben, we've been friends for 10 years. I've always cared about you, but caring about someone doesn't mean accepting harmful behavior. I hope you use this as a catalyst to get help. I read their messages over and over, searching for, I don't know, denial, anger at me for invading privacy, something that would let me be the victim, but there was none of that. Just relief that the secret was out, validation of the support circle's necessity, and gentle suggestions that I get professional help. I called my sister that night, told her everything, and she was quiet for a long time before she said, Cameron, I'm glad you're finally seeing this. I tried to tell you years ago that you had some toxic patterns, but you accused me of attacking you, and we didn't speak for 6 months. I've been walking on eggshells around you for your entire adult life. Why didn't you try harder to tell me? I asked. Because you don't hear criticism, she said. You hear attack, and then you make me feel guilty for hurting you. It's exhausting. I love you, but being your sister has been really hard sometimes. I called my ex-girlfriend. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. I apologized for everything. For being exhausting, for not listening when she tried to tell me I needed therapy, for making her responsible for my emotions. She was kind but firm. I'm glad you're recognizing this, Cameron, but I need you to know that I spent a year in therapy after our relationship trying to rebuild my sense of self. You made me feel like I was never enough, like I was always failing you. I hope you get help, but I can't be part of your journey. I need to protect myself. That was a week ago. Since then, I've been in this strange limbo. I've started seeing a therapist who specializes in personality disorders and toxic behavioral patterns. She's helping me understand where these behaviors come from, how they developed, why I couldn't see them. Apparently, I have what she calls anxious attachment, combined with some narcissistic traits and boundary issues. I grew up in a household where I had to create crises to get attention, where my emotional needs were only met if they were urgent enough. So I learned to make everything urgent, to create drama, to demand immediate responses, and I never unlearned it. The narcissistic traits, she explains it's not full NPD but tendencies toward it, mean I struggle to see other people's perspectives. I can intellectually understand that my behavior affects others, but emotionally, I'm always the center of my own story. Everyone else is supporting cast. The boundary issues come from never having healthy boundaries modeled. I don't know where I end and others begin. I think love means constant contact, immediate availability, total enmeshment. The idea that people need space from me feels like rejection rather than healthy relationship dynamics. My therapist keeps saying that awareness is the first step, that recognizing these patterns is huge, that many people never get to this point of self-awareness. But awareness without change is just painful knowledge. I know now that I'm toxic. I can see every way I've harmed people I care about, but knowing doesn't automatically mean I can stop doing it. I've been reading about toxic behaviors, watching videos about emotional manipulation, joining online forums for people recovering from being toxic. And what I'm learning is that this is going to be a long process. Years, probably. Maybe a lifetime of conscious work to rewire patterns that have been ingrained for 3 decades. I've been tempted to reach out to my friends individually, to apologize, to explain that I'm in therapy, to try to save the friendships, but my therapist says that would be another form of manipulation, making my realization about me, demanding their emotional labor to process my growth, putting them in a position where they feel obligated to reassure me. The most loving thing you can do right now, my therapist said, is leave them alone. Let them have the peace they created for themselves through that support circle. Your journey to health is your responsibility, not theirs. So I've been leaving them alone. Haven't texted, haven't called, haven't shown up at anyone's place. It's the first time in years I've given them space without making it about my hurt feelings. But God, it's hard. Every day I want to text Jason a meme, want to call Melissa to tell her about my day, want to ask Ben for advice. These were my people, my support system. And I drove them away by needing too much, demanding too much, taking too much. I think about the support circle a lot, about the fact that they needed professional-level coping strategies to deal with being my friend, about the detailed documentation of my harmful patterns, about the fact that they found each other more supportive than they found me. Even though I'd always thought of myself as the supportive friend, I was so convinced I was a good friend. I remembered all the times I'd been there for them, stayed up late listening to their problems, showed up when they were sick, helped them move, celebrated their successes. But what I'm understanding now is that my support came with strings, with scorekeeping, with an expectation that they owed me constant availability in return. Real support, I'm learning, doesn't create debt. It doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't make people feel obligated or guilty. I thought I was being a good friend by being intensely involved in everyone's lives, but I was actually being controlling, overwhelming, and exhausting. Last night, I went through my phone and looked at my other relationships. Co-workers, acquaintances, people I considered friends outside this core group, and I realized I don't have other close friendships. This group was it, because everyone else had pulled away over the years. The colleague who stopped inviting me to happy hours after I monopolized every conversation with my problems. The gym friend who blocked my number after I got upset that he couldn't spot me one day because he had to leave early. The neighbor who avoided me after I showed up at her door multiple times wanting to just chat when she was clearly busy. The pattern is everywhere. I'm not someone people want to be close to. And instead of examining why, I've always blamed them, called them bad friends, told myself I was too much for them, that they couldn't handle my intensity, that they weren't capable of real depth in friendship. But the truth is simpler and more painful. I'm toxic. I exhaust people. I take and take and take, and I frame it as loving hard or being a good friend or having needs. I've been writing letters I'll never send, apologies to every person I've harmed, not to absolve myself or make myself feel better, but to fully reckon with what I've done. Dear Jason, I'm sorry for the 47 texts in one day, for the calls and voicemails demanding to know why you weren't responding, for making you feel like a bad friend when you were just trying to have boundaries, for treating you like a 24/7 emotional support hotline instead of a person with your own life and needs. Dear Melissa, I'm sorry for showing up unannounced at 11 p.m., for minimizing your promotion, for every time I disguised criticism as concern, for making you feel like you couldn't celebrate your achievements around me because I'd find something wrong with them. Dear Sophie, I'm sorry for making your engagement about my fears instead of your joy, for the countless other times I've centered myself in your moments, for every celebration I've dampened with worry disguised as care. Dear Ben, I'm sorry for borrowing money and making you feel guilty for asking for it back, for the 10 years of friendship where I kept score of every favor, every support, every time I was there for you, and used it as ammunition when you tried to set boundaries. Dear Rachel, I'm sorry for every 2 a.m. crisis call, for expecting you to drop everything for me while never respecting that you had your own life and needs, for making you feel like a bad friend when you were just trying to take care of yourself. I won't send these letters. That would be making my realization about them, demanding their emotional energy to process my growth. These letters are for me, to fully acknowledge what I've done. My therapist asked me yesterday, what do you want your relationships to look like moving forward? I didn't know how to answer, because every model of friendship I have is based on the toxic patterns I'm now recognizing. I don't know what healthy friendship looks like. I don't know how to be close to someone without being enmeshed. I don't know how to need people without exhausting them. I don't know how to support without scorekeeping. That's what we'll work on, she said. Building new models, learning new patterns. It's going to take time. Time. The thing I've never been good at giving people. Or myself. I want immediate results, instant forgiveness, quick fixes. But this isn't something that can be rushed. I think about my friend's support circle and I feel this complex mix of emotions. Shame that I was so toxic they needed professional-level strategies to cope with me. Sadness that they were suffering and I couldn't see it. Relief that they found support in each other. Grief that I wasn't capable of being the friend they needed. Gratitude that they cared enough about each other to create that space rather than just cutting me off entirely. The support circle documentation is weirdly the best gift anyone's ever given me. Not intentionally, they never meant for me to see it, but it's given me something I've never had before. An objective account of my impact on others. Not just one person's opinion that I could dismiss. Not just a vague, "you're too much" that I could rationalize away. But detailed, documented, corroborated evidence of exactly how my behavior affects people. I wish I'd had this information years ago. I wish someone had sat me down with that level of detail and said, this is what you're doing. This is the impact. This needs to stop. But as my therapist points out, people did try. My ex told me I was exhausting. My sister said I had toxic patterns. Rachel, Melissa, Jason, they all tried to set boundaries at various points. I just couldn't hear it. I turned every attempt at boundary setting into an attack on me. I'm learning that this is common with toxic people. We're so defended against criticism that even gentle feedback feels like an existential threat. We've built entire personality structures around protecting ourselves from seeing what we don't want to see, and the cost is that we poison every relationship we have. It's been 2 weeks now since I found the support circle documentation. 2 weeks of intensive self-examination, therapy sessions, reading, and trying to understand who I am underneath all these defensive, manipulative, toxic patterns. And I still don't have answers. I don't know if I can change. I don't know if my friends will ever want a relationship with me again. And more importantly, I don't know if they should. I don't know how to be in relationships that aren't built on these toxic dynamics. What I do know, I was wrong about almost everything. I caused real harm to people I loved. Recognizing this doesn't automatically fix it. I have years of work ahead of me. I might lose everyone in my life as a consequence of who I've been. That consequence would be fair. I'm writing this at 5:47 a.m. now. Another sleepless night. But this time, instead of texting friends at 2 a.m. about my crisis, I wrote in my journal. Instead of calling someone to process my feelings, I sat with them alone. Instead of making my pain someone else's problem, I held it myself. These are small things. Baby steps toward being less toxic. But they feel monumental. Every time I want to text Jason and don't, I'm choosing his well-being over my immediate need for connection. Every time I want to show up at Melissa's apartment and don't, I'm respecting her boundaries. Every time I sit with discomfort instead of making it someone else's emergency, I'm taking responsibility for my own emotional regulation. I don't know if my friends are still meeting for their support circle. I don't know if they talk about me anymore or if they've moved on to other topics now that I'm not actively in their lives. I don't know if they feel relief at my absence or guilt about the support circle or both. What I know is that they needed that circle. They needed each other because I couldn't give them what a friend should give. Support without strings, care without control, presence without overwhelm. And maybe the healthiest thing I've ever done for them is stay away. Let them have their peace. Let them have friendships that don't require documented coping strategies and monthly support meetings. It's lonely. God, it's lonely. I've never been truly alone before, because I've always had someone on call, someone to text, someone to demand attention from. Now I have just myself, and it turns out I'm not great company. I'm having to learn how to sit with my own feelings, process my own problems, be my own support system. My therapist says this is necessary, that I can't build healthy relationships with others until I have a healthy relationship with myself, that I need to learn who I am when I'm not performing crisis or demanding attention or manipulating for connection. So I'm trying to sit with discomfort, trying to observe my patterns without judgment while still taking responsibility, trying to build new neural pathways that don't default to manipulation and control. Some days I think I can do this. I can change. I can become someone who doesn't exhaust people, who doesn't need support circles created to cope with me, who can have healthy relationships built on mutual respect and appropriate boundaries. Other days I think I'm fundamentally broken, that these patterns are too ingrained, that I'll always be the toxic friend, the emotional vampire, the person people need strategies to handle. Most days I don't know. I just wake up and try to make different choices than I did yesterday. Try to notice when I'm falling into old patterns and course correct. Try to do the work even when it's painful and lonely and there's no guarantee of redemption. Because here's the thing. Even if my friends never forgive me, even if I never have close friendships again, even if I'm working on this only for myself with no external reward, I still need to do it. I need to do it because living as the toxic person was hurting me too, even when I couldn't see it. All that drama, all that need, all that manipulation, it was exhausting for me too. I just didn't know there was another way to be. Now I know. I've seen the documentation of what I was. I've read the detailed accounts of how I harmed people. I've sat with the reality that I was the villain in multiple people's stories. And I can choose to stay that person, or I can choose to do the hard, painful, lonely work of becoming someone different. I'm choosing the work, not because I deserve redemption, not because I'm owed forgiveness, not because I think I can fix what I broke, but because the alternative, continuing to be someone who needs support circles created to cope with them, is unbearable. The sun is coming up now. Another day, another opportunity to choose different patterns, another day of sitting with the weight of knowing who I've been while trying to become someone else. I'm 32 years old and I just found out I'm toxic, and I'm trying to figure out who I could be if I weren't. That's all I have right now. Just the trying, and the hope that trying is enough to start.